Okay, it is exactly 8:33 p.m. Central Standard Time, and my name is Richard Wright, as you already know, and I'm your professor, has been your professor for the last 3 weeks. Welcome to week number four. Four. This is the fourth week, and in this week, um, you should know we are crossing over to the second half of the course, which means we have 3 more modules to go, and that we have 3 more lectures to go, counting today. So it is incumbent on you to get those assignments in. I've stressed the importance of paying attention to the module, what I say in the lecture, and the rubric itself in order to maximize your grades. So the reason why some of you have gotten lower grades is because you didn't satisfy the requirements of the rubric. Maybe your page content was not enough. Maybe you didn't have citations in the body and references at the end. You didn't have a cover page. And again, you didn't comply with APA. And that is so important. I put those comments in the grade book. And in the grade book, where you can find them under the rubric in the grade book, the rubric in the grade book. And that's how I determine what your grades are. You should appreciate that because it's very objective. And with it being objective, I'm not really evaluating um, your grades except to see if you complied with the requirements of the assignment. So sorry about that. And so it's important for you to make sure that you follow the requirements of the rubric. I got these flies flying around down here. They've been doing it all week. I don't know where they're coming from, but at any rate, um, you want to make sure you do satisfy the requirements of the rubric. So let me get started. Share my screen with you. Okay. So let's go to the student preview. And okay, so let's take a look at the messages. You can see the messages where the PowerPoints were sent to you, the recorded lectures. And then let's take a look at the grade book. Now, in looking at the grade book, you can see the assignments themselves for this week. Discussion post, your written assignment, and then of course your quizzes that you have every week, which are timed. Now, one of the things that I do want to show you is in your, and I'm looking in the grade book right now, is that you could see the assessment, which is making sure that you include this scenario for Dave in there. So you need to address the origin and development of international drug cartels in the manufacturing, sale, and distribution of illegal drugs. Identify the connection to Dave's scenario that we've been talking about since week 1. Identify current interdiction policies and legislative efforts to reduce and prevent the manufacture, sale, and distribution of drugs. Compare how the interdiction policies and the efforts legislatively are similar and different for gangs, organized crime syndicates, and international cartels. Okay. Provide an example and explanation of an interdiction policy or legislative effort for gangs, organized crime, and syndicates. We'll be discussing some of those. It says provide at least one credible source. Now, I'm going to tell you up front, it would be wise for you to provide credible sources throughout the paper, not just one, because you're going to be writing a 2-page paper minimum, a minimum of 2 pages. And you will lose points if you get a 1.5 pages, 1 3/4 pages. You will lose points. Double spaced, not single spaced as well. So credible sources, as I constantly remind you guys, provide support for the statements contained in your papers. So therefore, why I say more than one credible source is as you deal with the items from the grading rubric, and here's how I do it. Each section gives you a percentage, and you have to satisfy each of these. So if you satisfy everything, you'll get mastery points. If you don't provide everything, you can get proficiency or competence. If there's missing credible sources, you're going to end up here. So if you don't have any credible sources, you'll fall all the way from here down to here. And that will mean your first section will be this. With the comparison, notice the same thing. You got to complete the information of interdiction policies and legislative efforts for gangs, organized crime, syndicates, and international. So you got to give me the information. That's what it tells you. Exemplary information with thorough citations to support your statement. For gangs, a thorough example and explanation of interdiction policy or legislative efforts for gangs. By the way, you'll understand interdiction policies when you go through and read your material and look at the information on the PowerPoints. If you don't provide any support, incomplete example, incorrect explanation of an interdiction policy or legislative effort, you'll end up here. So the point I'm trying to get you to understand is how you get your lower points is this is the points that you get because you're in emerging. This is the points you get if you're emerging. Example for gangs, same thing here. And it goes all the way down. All the way down. All the way down for cartels. If you don't provide information, you're going to end up at the emerging. If you don't provide credible sources, you're going to end up down here. No credible sources. Okay. Then you get down here. Let's move this out of the way for a minute. Your professional language. No professional language. You didn't meet the 2-page minimum requirement. You'll end up down here. You'll fall all the way from 5.4 to 2.97. So that's how the rubric is. And the comments will be put in under each section in your grade book. If you look in it, that's where you'll find that information. Okay. Discussion forfeiture. You're going to read this fact scenario. And then for your first post, identify 2 arguments in support of forfeiture programs. 2 arguments. And then next, identify the property or items that you believe can be forfeited in connection with Mary's illegal drug activity. What factors should be considered? Should the forfeiture programs for drug-related assets be limited, eliminated, or expanded? And then in your reply post, respond to a student who made a different point or argument regarding the forfeiture programs. Okay. It says include citations. You can. I don't penalize you if you don't, but it's a good habit to develop. That is providing citations, because as I constantly remind my students, citations provide support for the statements in your written assignments. Of course, you know that your discussion post, initial post, is due yesterday, the 31st of August, and that your reply post is due Saturday, September the 4th. Your written assignment that I just covered is submitted on Sunday, the 5th, as well as your quiz, as well as the live classroom phrase that I'm going to give you. Okay. So let's get out of the student preview and let's go back into it. So let's look at the course calendar. And I like to look at the month view. And if you look at the month view, you will see that it provides everything. This is where we are, the 1st of September. And you see we have 17 more days before this course is over. So it shows your initial post due yesterday. It shows your live lecture today. And if you didn't know how to find the link, if you clicked on it and scroll down, there it is, the hyperlink right there. There are several places that you would find the hyperlink. Okay, your reply post is due Saturday. And then your written assignment, your live classroom phrase, and then your timed quiz is due Sunday. And you'll see again that the 17th is the last day of class, not the 18th, not the 19th, or the 20th. Okay. Now let's go to the reminder that if you wanted to reach out to me, again, you go to the syllabus and you will find my contact information, the hours, you know that. You can text me, call me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour. I encourage emails. I discourage emails, but I encourage calling or texting. That way I can respond to you much faster. This is the phone number you use for calling or texting. Okay. Let's take a look at the announcements for this week. So for week 4, we're dealing with drug-related criminal activity, law enforcement perspective. To prepare for the assignment, it's important to read chapters 6 and 7 of the textbook. I provided that for you along with the PowerPoints that go with that. And we're going to talk about combating drug trafficking organizations, or what I call DTOs, and law enforcement response to the heroin epidemic. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Okay. This week, as in future weeks, our lecture, of course, takes place every Wednesday, and the link again is a hyperlink. If you click on that, it will bring you into the class as well. The discussion assignment is forfeiture. I've already discussed that. The written assignment, policies to reduce and prevent drug-related crimes. I've covered that. And then you know about the quiz. And then there's the mid-quarter survey that is due. And I encourage you to be strong when you start and finish strong. So we're going to the second half, so continue performing. You'll learn my motto, adversity is the springboard to success. If you looked at my video, you know what that is all about. The key thing I want you to be cognizant of is, again, rubrics are so important, and satisfying them and coinciding them with your written assignments will help you to increase your grade point averages in my classes. Okay, and that's the announcements. Okay, let's come down and let's get into the module. We've covered the assignment, we've covered the discussion, and you know about the quiz. The live classroom recording, again, is another place right now where you find the link to the lecture. If you click on that, it will take you into where we are right now, but this will be taken out and the recorded lecture will be in its place by the time you see the recording. Okay. Of course, your live classroom phrase is due on the 5th, which is Sunday. So we're going to talk about these two things tonight: combating drug trafficking organizations. So you should be aware that this drug trafficking organization is run like a business. They have supply chains, distribution of narcotics in all over the world, and they want to make money, and they use the most efficient way to maximize their profits. Now, the Chinese drug trafficking organizations are big on opium and heroin. And what they do in order to stretch these items out for sale, they cut them by adding fentanyl and caffeine. Now, caffeine is a sedative that's used for large animals. So you should be aware of the fact that when most people buy their drugs, their opium and heroin, it's not pure, it's laced with these additives like caffeine, which is an animal sedative, and it can poison you. That's why people zone out and have trips and problems that happen when they take these drugs and utilize them. Heroin is not regulated, and people ingest heroin and overdose and unaware of the substances that I mentioned that are added to heroin also. There's a good article here, if you take time to read it, The Chinese Connection Fueling America's Fentanyl Crisis, and explain how dangerous this is to people who use this. Moving right along, the Mexican DTOs, drug trafficking organizations, or cartels as they're called, are very organized, and they have the goal of gaining control of the United States distribution of drugs, and they use gangs. And what they do is they pay the gangs so that they can distribute the drugs, and then the drug sales are either laundered or or smuggled back to Mexico. And they pay corrupt government officials in the United States and Mexico to allow them to operate their businesses. So there's a lot of illegal activity from Mexican and as well as American um, individuals. A lot of money is passed around. So they support their business with violence. Um, Constantly, there's guns involved and automatic and semi-automatic weapons involved. The cartels constantly are fighting each other for control in the business of distributing um, the drugs in the United States. And here are just a few names: Sinaloa Cartel, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the Juarez Cartel, the Gulf Cartel, and these La Familia and Beltran Leyva. And violence goes with each of them fighting each other, and other individuals are killed as well. El Chapo, Juan Guzman, is in the penitentiary, um, waiting trial in several jurisdictions. He's in jail, but his family, including his wife, are involved in continuing the business. So the Drug Enforcement Agency, or DEA, is the primary agency that is stationed all over the world to deal with trying to eliminate the drug distribution throughout the country of the United States and the world. And investigations are um, are taking place all the time. And as a result of those investigations, they find individuals who constantly fit the mode of taking bribes and things of that nature. And there are individuals who will find themselves sometimes killed in operating this activity. Task force allow officers from many jurisdictions to work together, and they have to do that to pool their resources to work. Okay, number of tactics: undercover officers pretend to be buyers, and then there are also wiretaps that are allowed to listen in on the conversations. It's it's a conglomerate. It's huge. It's huge. In addition to the DEA, we have the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, um, also work in conjunction with the DEA. And ATF, as it says, is a key partner in seizing the firearms and weapons, because wherever there are cartels operating, there are firearms that are utilized to protect the business that they are doing. The DHS now, which came along after September the 11th, Department of Homeland Security, is another agency that is involved in dealing with patrolling the borders and attempting to stop the narcotics and money from crossing the border. So there's a lot of inspection of vehicles. And, contrary to what someone was talking about building a wall down in Mexico, most of the illegal drug activity does not happen at the wall. It happens at the checkpoints, and cars that have false um, um, gasoline, um, receptacles and parts of cars are used to transport these drugs. So in the various jurisdictions across the country, the local, such as the state patrol, work interdiction in their efforts to identify drug trafficking shipments together with the local police at the and attempt to try to minimize or eliminate it. In addition to the federal government, the state, county, and municipal governments that carry out the joint agency efforts, there are organizations in the countries like Mexico and places like that, which allow or utilize their law enforcement agencies to work together with the United States agencies that I've mentioned. And this is just a little bit about it. So it's a cross-country thing. So you should be aware of the fact that it takes teamwork from these agencies. Now, you should be aware that with all of these agencies working, and with there being a lot of influence based upon corruption that's involved with the distribution of drugs, that the war on drugs, which the legislation passed and to try to minimize distribution and the passing out of these drugs, is not working. It's not working. It's not working very well. So law enforcement has to recognize and understand that. And so now we're going to turn from dealing with drug trafficking organizations to what law enforcement is doing now to deal with this issue. And so because law enforcement agencies find themselves dealing with individuals who are addicts with heroin and opioid, there is an epidemic for opioids. There is an increase in overdose. And so as a result of that, the law enforcement people, recognizing the seriousness of what this stuff is, as I talked about fentanyl and cafetinil, heroin addicts inject this stuff, not even thinking about what's in it. They just need it because they're addicted to it. Heroin-laced products have such a powerful sedative effect that breathing and respiration slows and then sometimes results in death. So now law enforcement, in terms of responding to it, have come up with using other things such as Narcan to try to take those individuals and give me a second here. Take those individuals and apply this drug called Narcan, which is a prescription drug, which is an antidote to opioid overdoses. Noxolone, which is a form of Narcan, blocks the effects of opioids and reverses the symptoms. And it's a controlled substance that requires authorization for possession and administration of the drug by first responders. And there are two ways they can inject it into the body, and then there's now a nasal one that is used to try to save lives. In most cases, there is an order from all agencies to get these prescriptions so that they can use them to attempt to save life. So in 2015, the FDA approved a nasal application. That's what I was talking about, the second way, avoiding the need for injection. And it's easier for the first responders to administer with minimal training. So the key thing is that law enforcement response is two parts. Here you're going to learn about the Narcan, Noxolone aspects of it right now, where there's a drug provided. Now, the problem with this is that if they don't get you in time, you will not be able to come back and survive from it. And you're going to see in videos that I will be sharing, including one tonight, to explain to you how these things work. And then next week, we're going to be talking about um, uh, the deflection programs that are operating across the country. I provided you one with the statute Senate Bill 2380, and that bill deals with deflection, but we'll talk about that next week. So there's an article here that's really good that discusses how law enforcement officers carry Narcan to administer to their canine partners in the event of exposure. The dogs themselves can sniff it. And so they talk about this article by Lavoie, new drug kits save police dogs from opioid overdoses because they're doing their jobs. So I'm going to take a few minutes and I want to share this video with you. And it's pretty short. And I'm going to take my headphones off. Hear it. It's about 4 minutes long.
Prescription pills and opiates has definitely become an increasing problem that we see, not only involving the crimes that investigate actual drug diversion, but it involves other things too. People start committing other crimes when they start seeing the need that they have to get these drugs. I think the worst part of it is that it's starting at kids with a very young age. Kids that are middle school even are starting to find out what these pills are, and they might think it's fun at first, and then you talk to them a year, 2 years later, and you realize it's a different story. I mean, so just the degree that people go to get these pills is insane. I mean, I've seen people that drive 7 hours one way every month each way, so that's a 14-hour round trip just to get these pills because so you need a job. You can't work your job anymore because all you care about is driving up to get these pills, and I mean, your life is over because all you can focus on is how do I get these drugs.
Search warrants in huge homes, multi-million-dollar houses, fancy cars, search warrants, and refrigerators. An individual subject, I arrested his mother and his father. So arrested him. Was injecting Oxycontin as many as 35 a day intravenously. He was using creek water just out of a local stream. He was living out in the woods. Everybody thinks they pop a few pills, it's no big deal. You young kids out there, you better just be very, very aware of what's going on with these pills. You can get addicted with one pill, and for the rest of your life, it will absolutely ruin you. It doesn't discriminate against you young or old, or you're black, or you're white, or you're male, or you're a female. I've arrested from 12 years old to 86 years old. I've arrested grandma and grandpa. I've arrested the young boy that takes the pills from his parents' cabinet and takes them to school and gives them to some other kids in school. When somebody gets sick, gets rushed to a hospital, and thank God doesn't die. I've worked probably at least 24 overdose deaths that are 100% related to prescription meds where it's too late, they're already dead.
A lot of students went down the road, a lot of young people go down the road of trying to drug for recreational purposes, and they don't understand the devastation that it has to their own life and the lives of their parents. Should add the victims of the crime include infants. We've had subjects who were pregnant women who gave birth to oxycodone, opiate addicted babies and infants. They even had to have the baby in jail. It's a growing problem as well.
And a lot of overdoses, a lot of deaths. Scary thing is it's getting younger and younger. They used to be the heroin overdoses seem like they were all of them. Lately they've been getting younger and younger, low 20s, even into their high teens. So I've talked to hundreds of heroin addicts or opiate addicts, and they'll tell me the same thing. If they could do anything, one thing different, they never would have started in the first place. That's the one regret that they all have, is that they started when they were young, and if you're an addict for life. That's the best way to avoid that is just to never do it.
We're seeing a dramatic shift in how it's affecting the lives of young people. They're experimenting with friends at parties, and they think it's safe to take pills from a medicine cabinet or a friend. And during the 1 week period, we had 9 fatal overdoses in a 3 jurisdiction area. And over the Christmas holiday, read 2 obituaries of people that I had arrested for prescription fraud and related offenses. Their parents buried them. They were young, 20-some years old.
Okay. So this video indicates how severe this thing is and how it can help. And so officers trying to use these drugs, Narcan and Noxalone, to try to save lives is sometimes not possible. I refer you to a book that's called From Dope to Hope, A Man in Recovery, Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan came to the Rasmussen Romeoville campus, and I met him, and he talked about the problem that he had as being an addict and how he turned it into a career as a counselor. However, one of the tragedies that he expressed to us, and it's also in his book, From Dope to Hope, A Man in Recovery, Tim Ryan. If you're interested in the book, you can find it on Amazon. The ISBN number, if you're looking for it, is 978-0-984-5917-2-5. From Dope to Hope, A Man in Recovery, written by Tim Ryan in 2017. And I recommend this book. It's not very expensive. I would recommend you checking that out. Now, the thing that he points out in there is that though he was able to help other people, one of the tragedies that he suffered was that his own son, he was not able to save him. And he talks about that. He shows pictures of it. It's a very, very, very good book. And he explains. So what's the point? Is what was said here. Don't get started. That's what you heard the law enforcement people say. The age differentiation, that it knows no race, sex, nor doesn't matter whether you're wealthy or poor. It doesn't discriminate. This heroin and opioids are killers because of the things that we've shared earlier. And so law enforcement wants to save lives from people. And you should be aware, again, as I say, that many people who find themselves in this category don't start out in this direction. They innocently find themselves in it. It could be in a social setting, as they talked about, a party or trying to impress somebody. But once you're in it, you can become a criminal, not just because the drugs are illegal, but because of the acts that you will end up doing to support the habit. I always said that the name of this course tells it like it is: drugs and crime. And individuals who utilize drugs commit crimes. And the reason that they do that is to support their habits. And so that goes with the territory of what these individuals find themselves doing. So it's very dangerous, very, 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 very dangerous, and can result in you losing your life. And so as a result of that, just don't do it. And so as future law enforcement people, you should be aware that part of your job will be to deal with individuals who find themselves in that situation. So that's what I wanted to share with you for today. And I want to tell you, as you do your research for your written assignments, uh, you'll come across all of that type of stuff as well. All right, so before I adjourn, I need to give you a key word. And one of the things I want to make you aware of is understanding what law enforcement is starting to do. So I'm going to give you this key word: Narcan, Narcan, which is a drug that first responders are using to attempt to save lives. Unfortunately, it doesn't always come in time. So give me the word Narcan and you'll get your points. All right, I will see you next week. We will have a long video next week that I want you to pay close attention to. So get those assignments in, and I will see you next week. If you have any questions, you know how to reach out to me. Have a good evening.